from a Christian perspective, turn to The Stand. Whether you choose to read the online blog or get the print version delivered to your mailbox, you can rest assured you'll receive factual news and biblically sound commentary. Find out more today at afa.net/The Stand.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. President Trump on Wednesday signed 7 executive orders focused on education. Alexandria Hoff is in Washington with more.
Let's start with HBCUs. President Trump is seeking to expand their reach by creating a pipeline of professional partnerships. Also at the college level, another executive order promises to overhaul the accreditation system. This is how universities secure federal aid, and by adding more accreditors and stripping DEI requirements, the White House says it will enhance competition and reduce ideological bias. And, quote, federal recognition will not be provided to accreditors engaging in unlawful discrimination in violation of federal law. Another EO undoes guidance put in place during the Obama administration that sought to equalize discipline rates by race.
Vice President J.D. Vance wrapping up his overseas trip with a visit to India to discuss potential trade deals. On his way back to the U.S., Air Force Two made a stop at Ramstein Air Base in Germany.
Whether you're getting cargo to where it needs to go or taking care of our troops who've gone off to war, we are grateful to you guys. We're thankful for what you do. Thank you all. God bless you. Thanks for having me.
The Supreme Court heard arguments this week about allowing parents to opt their young kids out of classrooms where pro-homosexual books are being read. Supreme Court Justice Neil Gorsuch had this exchange with a lawyer arguing for a Maryland school district.
And they're being used in English language instruction at age 3. Some of them.
Pride Puppy was the book that was used for the pre-kindergarten curriculum. That's no longer in the curriculum.
That's the one where they are supposed to look for the leather and things and bondage, things like that.
It's not bondage. It's a woman in a leather.
Sex worker, right?
No, that's not correct. No.
I read it.
It's a drag queen.
Drag queen and drag queen.
Fox News contributor Katie Pavlich says the left wants control of children.
Wow. I mean, Pride Puppy is now in the record at the Supreme Court. It's an amazing time to be covering all of this. But this comes down to the issue of parental rights. And the left for many, many years has been pushing parents out of the classroom. And this case in Montgomery County, these parents are simply saying, we want the option not to have our children exposed to this inappropriate material. And yet you have these teachers' unions, school boards fighting back against it. One of the best things we've seen over the last couple of years is parents taking books like that and going to these school board meetings and reading the material out loud. And then you see these school board members panic and freak out and say, that's inappropriate for this school board meeting. You can't be reading something like that, not understanding the irony that they are reading this inappropriate material to children in classrooms and not giving parents a choice when it comes to opting out of this material for their kids.
And Steve Jordahl reports this isn't just a legal battle. It's also a spiritual one.
After hearing Tuesday's oral arguments, most legal analysts say the Maryland parents are likely to get their opt-out. But while the High Court deliberates the legal case, Dr. Alex McFarland of Alex McFarland Speaker Series says homosexual indoctrination in the classroom is a spiritual problem.
When a teacher is presenting as normative homosexual sodomy and transgenderism, yes, that is undermining the faith that the majority of American parents are trying to impart.
He says safeguarding the faith of the students and the authority of parents to raise godly kids as they see fit should be the number one priority for every family.
The parents in Maryland or any state have not only the right, but I would say the obligation to remove their children from woke indoctrination.
McFarland says when a teacher denies logic and the basic facts of biology, it sows the seed of doubt in a child's mind about their parents' knowledge and beliefs.
Gender confusion is not a birth condition. Gender dysphoria, i.e. transgender ideation, is a response to emotional, psychological pain.
He says every Christian family should pull their children out of public schools. Yes, it'll be expensive, and yes, some changes may be necessary.
When we think something is important, we find a way.
I'm Steve Jordahl.
More news online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
This weekend on The Stand Radio, we'll look at spiritual awakening and the one ingredient that can revolutionize our prayer lives. Bill Elliff will be our guest.
John said, I've come to know and believe the love God has for me. And perfect love casts out fear. I'm not afraid. I have nothing to fear if I know the Lord loves me like that.
The Stand Radio, Saturdays at 4 and Sundays at 8 p.m. Central on AFR.
Welcome to Today's Issues. Join us for the next hour as we offer a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Ed Vitagliano.
And welcome to Today's Issues. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildman today. I am joined in studio by Fred Jackson. Good morning, Fred.
Good morning, Ed.
Wesley Wildman, good morning to you.
And good morning.
And Chris Woodward, a news reporter extraordinaire for American Family News. Good morning to you, Chris.
Hello.
Hello.
We got breaking news.
We do? Oh, well, go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead with it.
If I could, and I got everybody's attention because y'all don't even know what I'm about to say.
I don't.
McDonald's is adding a brand new menu item, McCrispy strips.
McCrispy strips?
Yes, I said it correct. Yes, McCrispy strips.
Okay. Yeah. All right. That's
sorry, guys. I couldn't help myself.
Are you a big fan of McDonald's?
We hit her.
You got kids.
Kids. A couple times a month, maybe 2-3 times. But
yeah.
Anyways, when I got to my computer here and you were doing the intro, the first thing I saw was this breaking news that I just shared with everybody, and I was like, surely not. And it is.
Yeah, if you read down through the story, they're going to glue together some McNuggets.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's well played, Fred.
RFK
Sorry.
doesn't like that.
Well, but at least you're not easily distracted. First thing that popped up.
That's right. It said McDonald's has something crispy
We're
for
actually
us.
not far from a McDonald's. We could send somebody out and do a live taste testing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an even better idea.
To glue the nuggets together. That was worth all of it, though.
It is Thursday, April 24th. That is today. Now, by the way, when does the McCrispy come out? I mean, if you're going to have breaking news, you got to have. It's got to be the what, when, where, how, why.
By the end of 2025.
The end of.
Well,
takes that long to glue them together.
That's not breaking news.
You know what? I don't know. That's a good question.
That's a big head start.
We need to come back to that.
By the end of 2025.
It's kind of an odd thing, though, because everybody loves. I mean, one of the reasons people go to McDonald's is for the chicken McNugget.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that would be like Chick-fil-A offering.
Okay, I'm wrong. May 5th.
Okay.
There's your answer.
Oh, so it's coming right up.
May 5th.
Now, that is breaking news.
That is. There we go.
Well, folks, that's why you tune in to listen to this show for
we're going to get serious.
Listen, I will say this one other thing. Somebody messaged me on Facebook. I have been getting away from Facebook more and more just simply because it's just a huge time suck trying to, approve the tens of thousands of people who want to be my friend. But somebody did and said that here in Tupelo, Mississippi, which is the home base of our American Family Radio Network, we are getting an actual Italian restaurant.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, and I just was surprised. I mean, we're talking about one of those generational family recipe kind of Italian restaurants. So
they say it's very authentic.
Yes,
and it's in a place called Crosstown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, pretty excited about that. I'm going to tell you, more excited about that than the McCrispies. But
when you get caught by the train, go in and have some pasta.
That's right. All right. It is, as I said, April 24th. We're coming up to the end of the month. Chris, other than the McDonald's news, what other news did we want to touch on here?
Well, let's begin with this one. As President Donald Trump approaches the 100th day of his second term, there's a new Fox News survey that finds voters are pleased with the job Mr. Trump is doing on border security, but they're displeased on some other issues, including inflation and economic issues. Harrison Fields is a special assistant to President Trump, and he came out on Fox News this morning to talk about this new survey and the president's policies. Clip 1.
Well, I think overall the American people are giving the president his due time to get in here. It's only about 4 months to go in and do what they elected him to do, which is eventually tax cuts. We are continuing to do deregulation, and tariffs are playing one role. But if you talk to people in Main Street, you talk Macomb County, you talk Rochester, New York, these are people that are very supportive because he is reshoring jobs back into the country and prioritizing the American worker and not the worker of Vietnam. So these are all great things. And I'll just remind the American people, the poll that was conducted on November 5th, which happened to be Election Day, we had 77 million Americans vote for Trump policy. So it's only about 4 months. Give us some time. The economy is looking very strong. Look at inflation numbers. Look at jobs numbers. We are just getting started.
Well, Fred, this is part of the pressure that builds on a new administration. I say new administration because President Trump had the Biden term in between his two administrations. When you come in, especially with all the promises that President Trump made, okay, pressure builds to get immediate results. Yeah. And when you're talking about the economy, that's not possible. No. Only in very rare circumstances could you have a president affect widespread economic changes. But I would say that economics and especially inflation, the cost of everything at the kitchen table, that was probably the main driver of President Trump's election. The border might have followed closely behind it, but this is a necessary call to remind the American people that it takes time.
It does. On the border, President Trump has hit it out of the park.
Right.
I mean, it's absolutely amazing what has happened on our southern border. The pictures that we have seen during the Biden years, when it was like everybody descending into a rock concert.
It was like a line at Disney World or something.
It was incredible. Same places now. Fox has been down there taking pictures, and there are people out sweeping the walkway that was there. So I mean, and when it comes to all of the smoke that the Democrats are putting up right now over deportation, that's exactly what it is. It's deportation. It's Obama judges that are helping these people out. So I think eventually that's going to be cleared. When it comes to the economy, you're exactly right. It is going to take some time. President Trump has a big picture on the economy.
Yes.
And part of what we're seeing right now is his effort against what he believes is how unfair the United States has been treated by other countries in trade. The trade imbalances. When we say that trade imbalances, it is we buy far more stuff from other countries than what we send them.
Yes.
That's kind of it.
Was our trade deficit last year was over $1 trillion.
Yeah. So he's trying to correct that.
Yeah.
That's what he's trying to do. And that's going to take some time. I think we reported yesterday he has at least 18 countries right now that have put proposals forward so that it's going to be fair trade. We had some reports yesterday where he's willing to compromise even with China on some of these things. Mm-hmm. So it's going to take time. But you know what? As I go to the grocery store and get gas for my vehicle, I've noticed gas prices are down lower than they've been in a long, long time.
Right.
So I'm not seeing a problem there. I mean, you're still seeing some problem with egg prices here and there, that sort of thing. But I think as gas prices, as we've said often, as gas prices go down, one of the big expenses with commodities is shipping the articles to your grocery store, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that will correct itself too.
Yeah.
I think one of the big things right now, obviously, has been with the tariff war, it's the stock market. People have been looking at the stock market, what's going to happen to my 401k, et cetera. Right. But even in the last 48 hours, we've seen some major corrections upwards on that. And if you talk to your financial advisors, they say, just hold on. It's going to come back.
Well, Wesley, one of the things that I think has caused some problems for President Trump is he's a very confident man, and he made promises that were probably unrealistic because that's just the way his mind thinks. When he promises, I'll have the Russia-Ukraine war solved in 24 hours.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
You know, I'm going to bring down prices so quickly you can't believe it. Well,
let's go pay for the wall.
Yeah. Yes. So, but it makes people expect that he's going to get it done that quickly when even President Trump probably is thinking that's hyperbole.
Sure.
You know, so
yeah. Well,
what are your thoughts?
Oh, well, I got a couple questions for the news guys here.
Okay.
Obviously, and it's all on the same topic here. There is a cost of living increase that happens every year anyways, okay? So in addition to that taking place, and as bad as the economy actually is, what is a realistic expectation that a conservative or a Republican or someone even in the middle or more moderate can expect? Obviously on the far left, they're going to criticize him even. Yeah, anyways. But if you were a moderate, what is a realistic expectation? Because he's got 4 years. He's 100 days in. So we could be really mad at the midterm because economically things aren't drastically better.
Yeah.
But in 4 years, what is a realistic expectation? Because it's really bad. He came into a really bad situation.
Yeah, you're talking about inflation.
Inflation. Right? It came in with a really bad inflation. Your grocery bill for families was up drastically.
Yeah.
One thing we mentioned in the past is the comparison under the first Trump administration and Biden's administration as it relates to just Chick-fil-A chicken nugget prices. I mean, it was doubled just about. So as bad as it is, and you have the annual cost of living, what is a realistic expectation?
All right, let's Chris, what's your answer first, then Fred?
Yeah, Walker and I have talked about this pretty often on At the Core in a segment that airs on Fridays.
Okay.
And we are both in agreement that pretty much you're going to see really big positive impacts, changes by the end of this year at the earliest, the spring of next year, which is not a terrible thing for Republicans trying to retain their majorities in the House or grow their majorities in the midterm election.
So not tomorrow, right?
Not tomorrow.
Okay.
And the reason I would say that is energy impacts inflation. Higher energy prices impacts everything from fuel and transportation costs, all these things that impact our daily lifestyle choices, right?
Mm-hmm.
So his policies on drilling more in areas we haven't been opening because of Biden's policies, that stuff takes months. It doesn't begin tomorrow, even though he wants to, quote, drill, baby, drill.
Right.
It takes time because you have to clear stuff out, hire people, dig, all that stuff. So really, I think his policies in the way of energy are going to impact prices by the end of this year, certainly by spring of next year. And, oh, by the way, we're going to be hiring people to build all the plants that are saying they're going to start popping up in the United States to get around the tariffs.
Yeah.
So that's going to help jobs and all these other things. I would say realistically, Christmas at the earliest, Easter next year, before you really start seeing positive stuff.
Right.
I think the only thing economically that can hurt the president, I agree with what Chris is saying, give it some time. And we can go way back to Jimmy Carter. Interest rates climbing.
Yeah.
If interest rates are climbing, and that will kill an economy.
That's right.
So we have to wait and see on that front. If interest rates are still relatively low right now, and in fact, people I've been talking to, they're hearing from their banks, hey, do you want to renegotiate? Now's a really good time to do it, because a 1% drop in interest rates is going to make a big difference in your mortgage payout. So that's the kind of thing. If he can keep interest rates low, and I think the other thing that's really interesting, you notice the Democrats have stopped talking about the economy.
Yeah,
they're not. They're talking about bringing guys home who are human smugglers from El Salvador.
Right.
Now, that's a sign of a desperate party. If the economy was really, really bad and they think they could win on that issue, they'd be talking about that every day.
Because that's what Trump did to get elected.
Yes.
We talked about how bad the economy was. Other issues, too.
Yeah.
But
All they're talking about is due process to bring Joe Garcia home from, not home, back into the United States because he's in El Salvador. By the way, we have a story this morning. There's more news coming out of the Justice Department about Mr. Garcia.
Yeah, we will get to that issue. But to your point, Fred, this is a political party talking about the Democrats without a message.
Oh, yeah.
Because you put all your eggs into that basket, the Garcia basket.
Yeah.
And as we're going to see, the Justice Department has been releasing more and more information about this guy. He's not a good guy. He's not a hero.
No.
In fact, he is probably going to wind up in the minds of most Americans being a villainous character. And if the Democrats have sided with him, that's going to be a bad look.
Yeah.
The only other thing I would say with regards to the economy is that, yes, money policy with the Fed, that does affect. If their interest rates are too high, it crushes economic expansion. If they're too low, it makes money too freely available and helps fuel inflation. And then also President Trump's idea about sending off checks, $5,000 to every family. That now, believe me, I know there are people out there going, we could really use that money. I understand that impulse. All I'm saying is the trade-off, and this is what happened after COVID hit. We had the lockdowns. That was in part, and that was Trump / Biden both. That was in part what fueled inflation. So all these other things, in addition to the energy costs, are going to determine what the economy does here over the next 6 months to a year.
I do want to mention briefly gas prices. To Fred's point, they are down, and they're down a lot. Today's national average for a gallon of regular gasoline is $3.17. A year ago, $3.66.
Right.
The all-important diesel number today is $3.56 a gallon on average. A year ago, it was over $4. Diesel, whether you drive a diesel-powered vehicle or not, still impacts you because whatever you're buying at a store got there thanks to diesel.
Yeah.
So the more we can do to bring down the price of diesel, that's going to impact everybody, even if you drive a regular gas-powered car or an EV.
Yeah. And naturally, as we cover politics and we cover what Trump's doing in his administration, naturally we want him to do well but if you think about it, even at 100 days, it's certainly not worse than it was. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
Now, don't get me wrong. He needs to keep his promises.
Yeah.
He's got 4 years to get it done. And we need to see some improvements in the next 6 to 12 months. But in all reality, it ain't worse.
Right.
I mean, could it?
I would say
that makes sense.
Yeah, grocery prices, in my opinion. Now, my wife does most of the shopping, but I went with her this past week. We had some time off here, obviously Good Friday, and I think that was when we went to, Walmart, a couple places to get some groceries for the weekend, and grocery prices are still high.
Right.
And that is still putting a crimp on everyone. But like you said, Wesley, it's not worse, and it may be trending in the right direction.
Yep.
So, all right. What else we got?
Let's get into this because it's a good soundbite that I really want to play. Illinois Republican Congresswoman Mary Miller is calling for a federal investigation after the state's high school athletic association said it would continue allowing males to compete in female sports. Now, at least 6 states are fighting President Trump's executive order barring males from female sports. That's despite that polling that even shows a majority of Americans support the president on this. There's a guy named Frank Murphy, who is the chairman of Athletes for America at the America First Policy Institute. He's also a former professional athlete, and he had this to say earlier today on Fox and Friends First, clip 4.
It's hurting women opportunity. It's hurting women privilege. It's hurting them in every phase of sports because now you're taking away from the very thing that they work so hard for just because you're not satisfied with who you are. Time for sports men that play sports at the NFL level, NBA level, wrestling, whatever it is. It's time for men to stand up for the women in sports. I mean, pay attention. God fearfully, wonderfully made you. That means he made you wonderfully. That means he made you even with a bit of fear to make sure that you're perfect in his eyes. And so you're looking at God saying, no, I'm not perfect, so I'm going to change some things. That's not the way to go. If he made you a man, you ought to be excited and happy to be a man.
Well, now, we are, by the way, folks, just in the way of giving you a heads up, after the break at the bottom of the hour, Sandy Rios is going to be joining us, and we are going to talk with her a little bit about these Democratic states that are, we're going to talk about both Republicans and Democrats with Sandy. But Fred, this is, now we've dealt with this issue a lot over the last several years, especially under the Biden administration, because he was all in. Well, I think it was him whoever was pulling the strings was absolutely in. So we've got a Democratic Party that is all in on this Garcia, I forget his first name,
Kilmar.
All in on the quote-unquote due process for gang members.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have increasingly these states like Illinois, to the point Chris is making, but how many states? Was it 6?
At least 6.
So Maine is one of those.
Minnesota, Illinois, a few others.
Yeah.
Probably California.
So now that's another issue. When I said there was a Democratic Party was a party without a kind of a platform or issues that appealed to the American voter, I didn't mean they didn't have any issues, but they've got due process for illegal immigrants. And, yeah, we're all in on allowing men to compete in women's sports. This is an insane approach to trying to appeal to a wide swath of the electorate.
Well, the polling prior to the election last November made it very clear. The large majority of the American people, whether they're Republicans or Democrats,
I got it right here.
Democrats or independents, are opposed to biological males competing in women's sports. Just before coming into the studio, Fox did an interview with somebody on this topic, and he gave a figure that I have not heard before. Over the last couple of years, 900 awards within female sports have gone to biological males that are being allowed to compete. 900.
Now, you're talking about in terms of winning competitions?
Yes.
And then awards for superior excellence and all that kind of?
Democrats tried to tell us this is a minor issue. It only involves a few people. No, 900 awards that females should have received.
There may be only a few transgender ones, but they're taking up all the trophies.
Yes, that's right.
900 that should have gone to girls, should have gone to your daughters, but it's going to biological males. And this issue is it's 100% Democrats.
Yes.
I'm not aware of Republicans out there beating any drum on this. No, Republicans are out there. This is a winning issue for them. It won for them in November, one of the winning issues in November. What I can't understand, if Democrats want to do better in the midterms, which are approaching quickly, why they're not changing their minds on this.
Okay, let me just, Wesley's got something he wants to toss in here, but let me just answer that question, what I think is at play here. All right, I don't know anyone, even in the conservative Christian community, but I don't know anyone who wants transgender people or young gay men or lesbians shoved in a locker at school or given a swirly with their head in a toilet or beaten up behind, in a dark alley. Nope. I don't know anybody who wants that. Okay, just because we're talking about the political issues and the educational issues here, nobody wants that. And I think what the Democrats are doing is they think the American people are thinking about that issue.
That's right.
The Democrats think the American people are worried about transgenders being beat up, and therefore they are going all in on every transgender issue. And the American people have separated these things. The voters have separated.
Yep.
They say, no, I don't want them getting beat up. I also don't want them competing against my daughter. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the political miscalculation I think the Democrats are making.
And for the longest, that your option, your position, what you're trying to describe is the Democrats' reason for doing what they're doing. For the longest, for many years, when I was in middle school and high school, that was very effective strategy.
Yeah.
Now we're a decade in, and the American people can distinguish between agenda and policy and people, individuals.
Yeah.
Which is why you got now as of 2025, 94% of Republicans. This is February numbers. 94% of Republicans are against men and women's sports. 67% of Democrats are against it, which is how you get the total of 80% of Americans.
Yeah.
Yep.
So,
well, this is the Democratic Party is a party in search of a message that appeals to voters and not just to the radicals that increasingly are piloting the ship. All right, we are going to take a short break. When we come back, Sandy Rios will join us. We'll pitch a couple questions to her and get her take on what's happening.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildman.
Back more than 2,000 years ago, a very wise man wrote some very wise words. This is what he said. A word in season, what a help it is. The writer of the book of Proverbs was indeed a wiser man than we sometimes give him credit for being. The author of Proverbs went on to state that a word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver. There are some key words which, if one will genuinely use, will make life much more meaningful. There is the word of humor. Humor is, without a doubt, one of the finest medicines we have. It will cure a multitude of real and imagined ills. It will help calm anger, cool tempers, and remove hatred. One thing is for certain, it's a quality we could use more of in our tension-packed world. Those who have learned to use humor have found it a very good partner. Look at some of the fantastic salaries being given to top comedians these days. There's always in our world a place for humor and anyone who knows how to use it. Then there's the word of appreciation. Most of us have underestimated the real worth of this word. One day I received a note of appreciation from a friend of mine in the morning mail. It didn't take 2 minutes to write that note, and it contained fewer words than an average grocery list. Yet it meant more to me than any other piece of mail I received during that entire month. How often we could show appreciation and how few are the times we actually do it. Thank you doesn't take 2 seconds to say, and it could last a lifetime. The wise man was correct. Anxiety in a man's heart weighs him down, but a good word makes him glad. There's also the word of encouragement. Sometimes this word of encouragement makes the difference between heaven and hell. I have hit rock bottom in my life many times, only to have someone speak a word of encouragement to me and set me to whistling again. Just to have one person who understands and speaks a word of encouragement often makes all the difference in the world. One reoccurring phrase of Paul's was, "Hold fast." Paul knew well the worth of just a couple of words of encouragement. A word in season, what a help it is. Then there's the word of forgiveness. My guess is that we speak fewer of these than any other kind. This is true not because we need to speak fewer, but because they are often harder to speak. How much we need to follow the example of Christ here. The woman caught in the act of adultery, when brought to Christ, realized the unsurpassed worth of a word of forgiveness. How long has it been since we've spoken a word of forgiveness to one who has wronged us? It would do tremendous good for them and to us to speak it. There is also the word we speak for God. A minister desiring help in finding a job for a convict once wrote me, "God's grace, as I have experienced it, can do great things. And if it did it for me, why not for this man?" You know, the world's waiting to hear a word like that. A word in season, what a help it is. Saying the right word at the right time can truly be one of God's richest blessings. Let me close with a little poem. God wove a web of loveliness, of clouds and stars and birds, but made not anything at all so beautiful as words.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildman, a production of the American Family Association.
In him we were also chosen, having been predestined according to the plan of him who works out everything in conformity with the purpose of his will. Ephesians 1, verse 11.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
And welcome back. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildman today. I am joined in studio by Fred Jackson and Wesley Wildman and Chris Woodward. And we are now joined remotely by Sandy Rios, the champion, host of Sandy Rios 24/7, the podcast that is available to you at afr.net. All of our listeners are pretty familiar with Sandy. Sandy, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ed. You make me laugh when you said remote. I'm thinking I'm up in a cabin, in the Northwest, no plumbing, freezing.
Well, yeah, either that or maybe you were up in space for 11 minutes and became an astronaut. All because
giggling appropriately. Yeah, giggling like all astronauts. Good astronauts should be doing, right?
Yeah, that's right. Hey, listen, before we get to the story we kind of had picked out, we want to talk to you about a GOP governor from North Dakota vetoing library restrictions in the school voucher program. But let me just set that aside just for a few minutes and and get your take on the Democratic Party's disintegration when it comes to issues that matter to the American people. We were talking about before the break that Illinois is joining a handful of states that are doubling down on protecting men in women's sports. Now, we're talking about transgender women. By the way, folks, just to help you out, figuring out, it gets a little confusing, but when you hear transgender women, just replace transgender with the word not, okay? Because we're talking not women. If it's a transgender man, not a man. So that's how that has actually helped me figure this out. But Sandy, what is behind the Democratic Party's determination? Now, we're going to play this fair and talk about a Republican governor in a second, but they do not seem to be able to figure out what are valid issues for the electorate. They're all the eggs all in the basket on gang members being sent to El Salvador and defending men and women's sports. What is happening to the Democratic Party?
Ed, I think maybe it's an issue of not having any kind of moral foundation. They're just for whatever gets them a win. And I think the older members of Congress, or wherever they are around the country serving, are probably not so comfortable with, reading books on bondage to 3-year-olds.
Right.
So they're probably not in favor of all these demonstrations in the street, the way these horrible, ridiculous, keyings of Teslas, because they know, like James Carville came out and just talked about how ridiculous it all is, how out of their mind. But here's the thing, the leaders of the party who are ancient, and they both parties, but we're talking about the Republicans, I don't think have the will to fight the younger, like the Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez. They don't have the will to fight them. They're the ones with passion who are digging in and they really believe. And so because they don't, the older dudes and women don't care that much because their moral fiber is not solid. They don't have a base. Then they're just letting it happen. And I think they don't know what to do, so they're kind of letting it happen. And that's the only answer I can give you right now.
Well, and to your point, Dick Durbin, who announced this week that he is not going to be seeking re-election, he's 80. I was wondering why he had decided to do this. Did it have something to do with not wanting to be humiliated by getting primaried and losing to a young radical? But he's 80 years old. There's nothing wrong with being 80, but like you said, these are not, young run to the ramparts Democrats who are willing to fight for the direction of the party. It's really we live in extraordinary times.
Sorry, Ed.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say about Dick Durbin, just as an interest. I'm always adding, I think, interesting things.
Yeah.
I was in Chicago, living, of course, there before I guess I was on the radio. Yeah. When Dick Durbin first ran. And I knew his opponent, he was a friend. And I really privately I worked really hard to get Al Salvi elected and Dick Durbin beaten. We didn't know anything about him. He was an attorney from the middle of the state. He always wear a bow tie. But the thing that we discovered immediately was that he was, you know how the Democrats lie now? They just lie and lie and lie.
Right.
He was the original. He was like, I've never heard anything like it. I mean, it was so hard for Al to debate with him because he was such a liar. And then fast forward, when I was in before I went to D.C., Dick came up for an election, and I was asked to run against him. That's a little sidebar, but
Wow. Okay.
yeah. But I had. It's an interesting story. I prayed about it, and within 30 minutes, a senator and a congressman I knew well said, "Don't do it, don't do it." So God gave me really clear. Anyway, yeah.
Okay. Well, and before I move to Chris and the story that we originally wanted to have you on to talk about, I was going to say, when you were talking about, I did not know that some had wanted you to run against Dick Durbin, and I was going to just joke around and say you should write a book about your experiences, but you have.
Well, I guess I have to write a part B or something.
Yes.
I forgot there's a lot of things I didn't put in there.
What's the name of your title of your book so folks can pick it up?
It's God's Velvet Hammer. God's Velvet Hammer, and it's on wherever books are sold. It's on also Audible. I recorded the Audible, and that's so it's God's Velvet Hammer.
Okay.
Thank you for asking, Ed.
Sandy Rios is with whom we are speaking. Many of you recognize her voice, but she's had an extraordinary life. So pick up a copy of a book that you are going to enjoy. Fascinating, and you will see as her life is demonstrated in that book, a lot of the major battles that Christians have been fighting for X number of years. So, all right. Go ahead, Chris. What's the story we wanted to kind of pitch to Sandy?
Yes, this is a story that anyone can find on our website, afn.net. North Dakota's Republican Governor, Kelly Armstrong, vetoed bills yesterday to further restrict sexual content in libraries and to create a private school voucher program. Republicans and governors and a whole bunch of other states like this kind of thing, so North Dakota was presumably the latest state to go in this direction, but they didn't because the Republican governor, again, vetoed those bills. In his veto message, Governor Armstrong said the bill represents a misguided attempt to legislate morality through overreach and censorship. The bill imposes vague and punitive burdens on professionals and opens the door to a host of unintended and damaging consequences for our communities. He also said the bill is redundant, overly burdensome, and places local librarians, school districts, and the state's attorneys in an untenable situation. Sandy, what do you think about this Republican governor doing something other Republican governors liked?
Well, let me put it to you this way. We have a lot of Republican governors and Republican legislatures. It might be surprising for you guys to know that most of them are not conservative, not like we are conservative. So this is really not that unusual. And when you look back on, his name is Armstrong. What is it, John?
Kelly.
Kelly Armstrong. I wrote down John. I got to get that right. Okay, Kelly Armstrong, when you look at his past, he served in Congress. And while he was there, he was one of just a few Republicans who voted not to challenge the elections of 2020 on that fateful day, January the 6th. He was one of 7. He also voted to table a censure bill against Adam Schiff. He voted for the Respect for Marriage Act, which would have put same-sex marriage in federal law. You know, the Supreme Court legalized it, but so it would have codified it in law. He was all in favor. He voted against censuring Representative Rashida Tlaib. And I could go on, but and then one last thing interesting. Mike Johnson nominated him before he left Congress to fill a vacancy on the House Judiciary Committee. He was nominated by Mike Johnson. Now, this kind of will help make my point. Mike Johnson, I'm not banging on him today. I often do. We think he's so conservative morally. He presents himself, he's so winsome. But this is what he does. These are the kinds of people that are serving as Republicans in the House in the United States House and also the Senate and also in the state houses. In Michigan, in Wisconsin, they just don't know. There's no Republican leadership. They're Republicans, you know.
Yeah.
They're technically, like they always say, they're pro-life, but they really do embrace things that the left embraces. And so he's just one of many. Kelly Armstrong.
Well, this will be just the last take that we'll ask you to give here, but I really don't understand. I certainly don't understand the Democrats' support, other than the fact that the American Library Association, which pretty much drives the policies of libraries, whether in school or out of school, across the country, they have been in the back pocket of the Democratic Party for years. But how a Republican governor, these policies that Governor Kelly Armstrong of North Dakota vetoed, okay, simply wants to restrict the access of children to sexually explicit material. All they wanted to do is for that kind of material to be put in an area of the library not easily accessible to minors. I am just mind blown that anybody, let alone a Republican, could object to something so common sense that would protect our children. I'll give you the last word on this, Sandy. And
I just think it's very revealing, Ed. It tells us a lot about character, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because what man in their right mind would want their 3-year-old looking at this stuff? And
Yeah.
there's a argument, discussion, an issue before the Supreme Court right now on this kind of thing, same but different, from Maryland.
Yeah.
And they're talking about, leather and bondage, reading this stuff to 3-year-olds. It's coming out in the court in the discussion. So I think based on who knows, but based on the discussion and how it's going down in the Supreme Court, we may have a decision that would maybe, I don't know because I'm not an attorney, so this is my guess, my hunch, that perhaps a decision by the Supreme Court like that would put the kibosh, would give reasons for people to challenge these bills or these decisions in states up to the Supreme Court. There might be something like that. So there is hope. Plus, I would think the people of North Dakota would be pretty disgusted with Kelly Armstrong, and they would pressure, hopefully, their state legislators to veto this bill. One other quick thing: there are freedom caucuses now, in I think 13 different states. I believe North Dakota is one of them, and they're really, shall we say, this is what I grew up hearing, tearing up Jake. They're tearing up Jake. They're really making waves in these state legislatures and fighting and pulling the Republicans. That's who the target is, back to sanity. And so maybe that'll happen in North Dakota because I think they have a freedom caucus. So we'll just have to see what happens.
You have anything else,
Yeah,
Chris?
we do have some audio on that Montgomery County, Maryland case, which we've covered for a couple of days now.
Okay.
But one of the things that people are weighing in on was an exchange between Justice Gorsuch and an attorney for the Montgomery County, Maryland School District. Clip 6.
And they're being used in English language instruction at age 3. Some of them.
Pride Puppy was the book that was used for the pre-kindergarten curriculum. That's no longer in the curriculum.
That's the one where they are supposed to look for the leather and things and bondage, things like that.
It's not bondage. It's a woman in a leather.
Sex worker, right?
No, that's not correct. No.
I read it.
It's a drag queen.
Drag queen and drag queen.
Yeah.
Like that's
That-
better.
Oh, it's just a drag queen.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what I'm talking
For a 3-year-old.
Yes, the fact that is a human being
Yes.
defending it, trying to explain why this is valid for instruction of 3-year-olds. I'm just listen. I don't know how big hell is, but there's a spot for that guy.
Yep.
I mean, that is just abhorrent.
I think if you were one of the justices, even the deception, because they're trying to make it, they're misrepresenting the book. Gorsuch said he read the book.
Yeah.
This guy is standing before him. Oh, no, not that, I would think for that alone that we'll get a good decision. I certainly do hope so. I think even Elena Kagan kind of weighed in with her shock on, I don't think I'd want my little nieces and nephews or whatever she said reading this stuff.
Yeah.
Could I add something else? Or you guys?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just want to kind of give you some context. This has been going on, these horrific books in school libraries since my son was 14. Wow. I got in a battle, and he was born in 1980. So I got in a battle.
So 94, you're talking
Yes. This is not new.
Right.
The American Library Association is one of the most left wicked entities you
They're
can
wicked.
imagine.
They're wicked. They're not just left wing. You're absolutely correct. They are wicked.
Yeah. And so they, along with the National Education Association, have pushed this stuff. And I remember I was in Wheaton. Wheaton DuPage County was a very, well, at that time, very, very conservative. A lot of mission agencies and a lot of very highly educated people. So a lot of parents went to that board meeting. We organized. I was young and kind of had my hands full, so I wasn't like a leader by any means of it, but I was part of it, just going there. And they completely mocked. These parents were like doctors, lawyers, they were not like, not that, I'm just saying from their perspective, they think they're so smart, and these are parents who are dumb. These were not dumb parents.
Right.
And so, you know what the outcome was? We completely lost. They didn't care our concerns. Didn't care. They said that you could put your children could sit in the hallway. If you didn't like it, and so
we could have a long discussion on this. This is the challenge, and this was the point being made by our founding fathers about the necessity of a Christian and moral people, because freedom cuts both ways, as we all know from the Garden of Eden. All right, you can have freedom of choice, but that can lead to really bad choices. And you have these people whose minds are depraved. These are depraved individuals. This guy, I know he's an attorney for Maryland in this Supreme Court case. I know what his job is. He's supposed to defend the policy of Montgomery County schools. I understand that. I don't care. Unless you have a mind that's depraved, you say, I'm not taking this case. I'm not defending this.
Right.
But these are people, I'm afraid a lot of them, they actually do believe this. They believe this is good for kids. And folks, when we talk about, and this is what Sandy Rios has been doing her whole adult life. That's why I recommend you get her book, Velvet Hammer. But this is why AFA exists. This is a war for the soul of the country. And we have got to call people back to the Christian faith, and a Christian faith that is rooted in the Bible, or we could see even worse wickedness coming at our children and our grandchildren, let alone the adults.
Hey, Ed, can I tell you one more story?
Go ahead.
We were actually in Phoenix. I have a sister out there for Easter, and we were praying about, I just longed for a Easter service that was powerful, not some meaningless, loud music. I don't mind loud music, but you know what I'm saying. I want something meaningful. And you know what? We just happened to go to a church that was everything plus. And actually, they baptized that morning 17 people who gave their testimonies. Guys covered with tats, stories of drugs, hearts broken. Some of them came to Christ that morning, and they just took them down and baptized them. And so I'm just saying God is at work. Yes, we are a depraved culture. It's almost impossible for any man walking on this planet not to be exposed to pornography right now. It didn't used to be that way.
Right.
And so we are becoming corrupt and vile, but there's hope. There's hope and redemption, and that's the answer to what we're fighting here.
Amen. Well, and that is an excellent and needed reminder, a corrective, if you will. I get caught up, I get fired up about this stuff, but God is moving, and we've talked about on this program about some of the revivals that appear to be taking place on college campuses and around the country. And the thing about the kingdom of heaven, remember, Jesus talked about the kingdom sometimes being like leaven, okay, that does its work in a loaf of bread, and you don't see it oftentimes working, he said, until the whole loaf is leavened. And folks, we have to believe that God loves all these people, like you mentioned, Sandy, covered in tattoos and who are trapped in darkness. He wants them. And the church has to be about the business of preaching the gospel and loving these people. And God will change their minds on politics if their hearts are changed. And God is doing that, and what a wonderful reminder of that.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to say, Sandy? This has been good preaching.
Well, I just always love talking to you guys, and we're in all of this together. But I still feel optimistic. I'm not only optimistic in the Lord.
Amen.
I'm not optimistic in the rest of it. But I see his hand at work. We were in Canada. Fred is gone today, right?
No, he's here.
I'm here.
Oh, Fred. Hi, Fred.
I've just been listening.
We were in Vancouver with my son and his wife about a month ago, and we accidentally, going into all of it, met a couple that are strong believers. And in North Vancouver, you don't often experience that. This was actually in West Vancouver, where every other car is a Tesla. So we, we linked up with them, and we got to know them, love them. We went to church with them. So I'm just saying that even in that place where there aren't that many people who openly talk about their faith in businesses and stuff like that, I'm sure you would attest to that, Fred. It's not normal in Vancouver.
No.
That God is at work. He's at work in Canada too. I mean, it's not just here.
No.
And so,
it reminds me, David Jeremiah is doing a series on the Church of Revelation right now.
Yeah.
He's been dealing in the last couple of mornings with the church at Sardis, which wasn't a great church. But he talked, there's always a remnant.
Yeah.
Even inside that church, there's always a remnant. And I think one of the good things that's happening right now, we just played the clip out of that Supreme Court hearing the other day. We can talk about how evil people are, but we just heard a lawyer defending a book being read to 3-year-olds about drag queens. That lawyer was defending that. So we don't have to say this is going to happen.
Right.
Brother Don for years warned this stuff was going to happen. Now it is happening. So now there is accountability.
Yep.
It's not about, that's just Brother Don's opinion.
Right.
No.
Fear-mongering.
This is happening. And let's remember what's at the crux of this case. This is about allowing parents to opt their kids out of it.
Right.
That's right.
This is about allowing a parent to say, I don't want my 3-year-old.
Yeah, this isn't even a case about whether this stuff should be available to kids.
It's not about book banning.
We can't even get that far yet.
No. Right. No. So I think it is good in a way that we have proof of how evil the agenda is of Satan's crowd.
Oh, I think so too. And I guess one good thing, Fred, when I was we were fighting this battle back in the 94, and I was so shocked at the fact that the school board didn't care. The administration didn't care.
No.
And it was so shocking to me. Yeah. But it's parents did not, there were that handful of parents, but by and large, parents did not believe things were that bad in their schools. And that's a battle that I had to fight on radio when I finally got on radio. Not at our school. Oh, no, we have a nice school. Yeah. And I'm just saying this has been happening. It's deep in the weeds for a couple of decades now. So the
but
good
it's
news
come
is
out
that,
of the weeds
yes,
now.
Yes. So that's my point. I didn't finish my thought, I guess. But now it's getting attention and people are getting fired up, and thank God for that.
Yeah,
amen.
Amen. Go ahead.
I was just going to add this. Anytime we talk about these types of situations where, whether it's in public schools or entertainment, where the target is children, the Bible verse that comes to mind every single time any of this comes up is Jesus speaking when he says, if any of you cause one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better that you would have a large millstone hung around your neck and thrown into the depths of the sea.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how serious Jesus responds to this type, because we understand that children are very impressionable and they're very they're dependent upon us in many ways, in almost a lot of ways, and this needs to be at the front of our minds as Christians, so that way we're not approaching this softly, but firmly.
Yeah.
All right, God's Velvet Hammer, written by Sandy Rios. I know it's been out for a couple of years at least.
Oh, no, not that long.
No, not
a
that
year.
long.
It's been out a year.
Oh, a year. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
So that's right. It's still relatively
It's hard to tell
new.
time in this news cycle.
Yes, that's right.
I know.
Pick up
it
a
moves
copy
fast.
of it by Sandy Rios. Sandy, thank you so much for being on with us. You always bring some great perspectives to the issues we're discussing. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, love you all. I'll talk to you soon.
See you, Sandy.
Okay, bye.
All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break for news, and when we come back, Steve Paisley Jordahl will be with us. Hope you join us.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
Faith, family, freedom. American Family Radio.
As a federal or state employee, you have the opportunity to support the American Family Association through the combined federal campaign. By designating a monthly payroll deduction using 12037, you help AFA continue to fight for your family. So when you complete your CFC form, remember, AFA's number is 12037. And thank you for your help.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. The Trump administration bringing charges against a top gang member.
It's the first case of its kind since the Trump administration designated the Venezuelan-based Tren de Aragua a terrorist organization. The Justice Department charging 24-year-old Jose Enrique Martinez Flores with drug offenses and conspiring to provide and providing material support to a designated foreign terrorist organization. Attorney General Pam Bondi calls the charges filed in a Texas federal court an inflection point for how the Justice Department will go after alleged gang members, saying, quote, TDA is not a street gang. It is a highly structured terrorist organization that put down roots in our country. In Washington, Ryan Schmelz, Fox News.
A New Mexico judge resigned last month after a gang member was arrested at his home. The man was living on property linked to the judge's family. Griff Jenkins has more.
This all began in late February. Homeland Security investigation agents raided Judge Joel Cano's New Mexico property and arrested alleged Tren de Aragua gang member Christian Ortega Lopez for being illegally in the country and in possession of a firearm. Days later, Judge Cano resigned without explanation. Now, according to court documents, Ortega Lopez had been doing odd jobs for Cano's wife before being offered lodging in the couple's casita on the back of the property following his eviction from an El Paso apartment. He associated with other TDA gang members and had tattoos associated with TDA and worried about telling the judge's wife about a specific AK-47 tattoo, a known TDA identifier.
President Trump continues to work to secure trade deals around the world, claiming that his team is in active talks with Beijing, even as Chinese officials say that's not true. Mark Meredith has more from the White House.
President Trump and his advisors say they're willing to work with China to find a new relationship, rebalancing the trade deals between the two countries. But so far, those conversations, according to the Chinese, are not taking place. The president, though, says that he believes those conversations can take place fairly often.
Mr. President, has there been any direct contact between the U.S. and China on trade at all?
Yeah, of course.
And
every day.
President Trump imposed tariffs on 145% on those Chinese exports to the U.S. And while the president and his Treasury Secretary say those numbers are going to have to come down eventually because they're not sustainable, the Wall Street Journal reports China is bracing for this to take years.
Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky meets with South Africa's president as the Russian invasion of Ukraine continues. Zelensky, speaking through translation in Pretoria, says peace talks are fundamentally unfair to Ukraine, but it's a risk the nation is willing to take.
We were attacked. Our territory was occupied. Tens of thousands of people were killed, many children and adults buried alive. And the fact that Ukraine is ready to sit at a negotiations table after a complete ceasefire with a terrorist that did it all on our land, exclusively on our land, this is a great compromise.
President Trump is looking to cut another $1 billion in funding from Harvard University. Bronson Woodruff has more.
Earlier this month, the Department of Homeland Security canceled about $2.7 million in DHS grants to Harvard. Last week, the White House asked the IRS to revoke Harvard's tax-exempt status. Fox reports this was because of the university's failure to address anti-Semitism on its campus. Now President Trump's administration plans to pull another $1 billion of funding. Aaron Bandler is an investigative journalist with the Jewish Journal. He said in an interview with AFN, the Trump admin has made some demands, including that protesters not be permitted to wear masks.
They wear masks, so they can't be identified, and that's a problem. And the administration also, among other things, demanded that the university resend its DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion program.
The Harvard Crimson reports the Trump admin sent a list of demands to Harvard on April 3rd. It says the administration sent a second list of demands on April 11th. But according to Fox, the admin claimed the second list was sent by mistake. Harvard is now suing the Trump administration.
Claiming that their actions are unlawful. How exactly they're unlawful, I'm not entirely sure. But I think it's clear that the university must be feeling the impacts of it if they are resorting to legal action, and we will see how it plays out.
Bandler said this is a very important moment in academia right now. He thinks how this lawsuit goes is going to set a precedent going forward on if the federal government can hold universities accountable in this manner. I'm Bronson Woodruff.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
AFA Action takes attacks on the family seriously. The enemies of the family constantly employ new tactics to try to sneak past our radar. They know if we stand together, their evil plans will fail. Your gift to AFA Action allows us to stay vigilant against their onslaught. And if you give this month, you'll receive access to the Cultural Institute video When Your Faith is Illegal by Frank Harbor on AFA Stream as our thanks. You can make your gift today at afaaction.net.
Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Ed Vitagliano.
And welcome back, everybody, to today's Issues. Ed Vitagliano sitting in for Tim Wildman today. I'm joined by Fred Jackson and Wesley Wildman, and now we are joined by Steve Paisley Jordahl, and he is living up to his name today.
I got the Paisley on today.
Yeah?
Yeah. How are you doing, Ed?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for asking, Steve.
Well, I was
Finally,
wondering because
somebody checked on Ed.
because your cough drops, which are usually ordered in precise lines, are just a jumble down there. I'm not.
You hadn't been paying attention over the
right.
last several months. I've just given up because I'm surrounded by people. I would come in from a break, and they'd be scattered.
Anyways.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I did. I used to have them 4 on the bottom, 4 above it in a line, and then 2 above it for my 10 that I bring every show.
OCD much?
Just a little bit.
So we've now completed Egg's segment of I've given up.
Yes.
And so he's given up on that. Tomorrow we'll find out what else you've given up on.
Yes. Yeah, at some point you just you're swimming upstream and you just say, you know what? I'm all tuckered out. I'm going with the flow.
Right?
So all these guys in here who, good grief, Brent Creeley, our producer, I come in and he hides my Diet Coke. I never know where it's going to be.
Yeah.
But they don't know that I'm taking.
Be on the lookout, Ed.
Be on the lookout.
There could be sabotage of that Diet Coke.
Well, let me just let you all know that is a bridge you ought not cross.
Too far.
Yeah, that's too far. Okay, Steve.
Hey.
As I call you, Steve-O.
Yeah.
What do we got?
You guys remember a couple of years ago that there was some suspicious something happening to our personnel in Cuba? They were coming home with some brain issues.
Yeah.
Headaches and stuff. Yeah.
Right. And
some with some damage.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, Catherine Herridge, who's a very respected reporter, she used to be at Fox, then she went over to CBS, and now she's kind of independent with these new class of independent journalists. This is what she is reporting. Top U.S. neuroscientist and military advisor, his name is James Giordano. He is the director of the Center for Disruptive Technology and Future Warfare. That's kind of a cool thing. He confirms that there are reports of credible directed energy weapons attacks. They've happened on U.S. soil and targeted U.S. personnel abroad. And I want to let you hear, this is directed energy weapons. This is microwaves, basically, that they can shoot at you. And let's just listen to Cut 13. This is James Giordano.
Are reports of directed energy weapon attacks inside the U.S. credible?
Absolutely. These are weapons of maximum disruption. It allows you to get in fast, hit hard, get out, and then, and only then, will the effects begin to be known.
Giordano showed us how brain injuries like Beck's can happen. Hollow spaces in the skull, the mouth, nose, ears, and eye sockets can become echo chambers, funneling energy waves into the brain with catastrophic consequences.
That's what a directed energy weapon attack does.
Yes, ma'am.
It fundamentally disrupts the brain network.
Yes, ma'am.
And can cause brain cell death.
Yes, ma'am. It can cause both brain cell death and change in the functional ability of various cells and nodes in the brain to be able to maintain the networks that are so vital to our thought, our emotions, and our behaviors.
All right. Now, I do want to just to clarify that not all DEW weapons are microwave weapons.
You said there are three kinds?
Yeah, okay. So this, I have a lot of respect for Catherine Herridge. That's how you pronounce her name. Okay, so is this report that she was doing, I don't know if it's a series of reports or what, and this individual with whom she was speaking, are they suggesting that these weapons were used? So this gets to pretty scary ground here.
I got my coffee.
Ready to go. Right.
Listening.
Used by enemies of the U.S., or is the suggestion that the U.S. itself is experimentally using its own weaponry on American citizens without their knowledge?
She's alleging both, actually, but
I thought we were going to get Steve's opinion.
Well, no, this is her report.
Yeah,
because this is. Let me just preface and just say before you get into your answer that this has been one of those conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
and we all know, we've seen the memes on social media that a conspiracy theory is an idea that is dismissed, and then 6 months later we find out it's real. Okay.
Well, not all conspiracy theories, do we?
Right. But increasingly, the things that people have been saying are true and being dismissed, we're finding out. And this is one of them. Yeah. This is one of them. Now, I am not a conspiracy theorist. I am usually very skeptical. Like the ideas about what happened in Hawaii with the fires, that was a directed energy weapon causing them. But this freaks me out a little bit. Okay, so continue with your explanation.
Yeah, let me
What's
read
the assertion here?
I'm reading here. DEW attacks happened after this gentleman Beck, who's one of the Cuban guys, permanently brain damaged, discovered operation targeting the USA by a hostile country. The attack, big three, USA, Russia, and China, all have DEW capabilities. Try to find the specific thing here. I'm going to walk back that the USA is using it on its own people for right now. I haven't listened to this. I just found this before I came in. But let me just say this. The reason this is a kind of a game changer is because, like Catherine was saying, you could fire it at somebody. They don't know they've been hit.
Right.
Walk away, go back to Havana or Moscow or wherever, and then within the next day or so, or a couple days, all of a sudden, cascades start to happen in the brain.
Yes.
And it's a way of, and how do you can defend against, like Secret Service can defend against a bullet because they see a guy up there with a gun and you hear a gun crack. Well, I suppose these directed energy weapons have a form, so you could look for them, but they can be fired from within a building. You can hide them.
Listen, the U.S. has been working on, as well as some of these other countries, but I know the U.S. has been working on kind of urban warfare, but also urban pacification capabilities. So if you have riots that are of a huge scale, there has been a great deal of research into ways to pacify the rioters without firing a shot or using tear gas. And that, I'm not sure those are all directed energy weapons, but some of them have to do with sound. Anyway, this is a whole field that a lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to. My tendency would be to think that this is might be the Russians or the Chinese trying to figure out what this capability can get them.
When you say pacify, then what do you mean?
That means the riot is broken up and people run because their eardrums are, in other words, you don't have to fire a shot or otherwise use kinetic weapons that use
So different
force.
Than like a loud horn.
Yes.
I'm just kidding.
Yes.
No, that's funny.
But it is funny, but when you put your hands over your ears over something like that, like a loud horn, this is times 10 or 20.
Well, it doesn't need to go through your ears to damage your brain. So
Anyway,
this is what the...
And I don't want to spend the whole half hour on this, so I'll give you
because you've already lost me.
Okay, yeah, we can move on. But I just want to say that I, as far as your question about U.S. using it, I hadn't heard it specifically, but I am reading from Citizen Free Press, their headline, U.S. has used directed energy weapons on U.S. soil targeting Americans, including CIA whistleblower. That's their headline from them listening to the whole interview. So just stay tuned.
I'm not questioning you, Steve. This is my skeptic part.
Yeah.
I have to see, when people say pictures or it didn't happen, I need to see more proof of that before I say that about the American government, U.S. government. But I am now, for the first time in my life, a little bit less skeptical.
Yeah.
So anyway, let's go ahead and move on.
All right.
Maybe we'll revisit these kind of things in the future.
I want to go back to just something that happened during this Supreme Court hearing on the school books and the opt-out for the parents. You've heard a couple of the exchanges between justices. I want to play you another one, and this is Ketanji Brown Jackson, and I want you to hear what she has to say. Cut 11.
I guess I'm struggling to see how it burdens a parent's religious exercise if the school teaches something that the parent disagrees with. You have a choice. You don't have to send your kid to that school. You can put them in another situation.
And boom, radical Democrats are now pro-school choice.
Hey! Well, all right. I've talked enough, Fred. Ketanji Brown Jackson has been criticized because she basically denied evidence that was put that the Supreme Court heard earlier, and has really kind of defended the school's policy. I'm not sure who else is going to join her, but it seems clearly she's one of those defending this.
Yeah, here's where she is on this. It's very interesting. We joke about it, all of a sudden she's school choice. But what is she really saying is, parents get a life. That's what she's saying to these parents. And I think it's very interesting, just in the last half hour, we played what Justice Gorsuch had to say. He read the books.
Right.
He says, and he's challenging the lawyer for the Montgomery School District. You're presenting this to 3-year-olds? You're really doing this? Jackson, on the other hand, is saying, parents, get over it. Move your kids somewhere else.
Yeah.
She's all in on the idea that parents should not have the right to opt their little 3-year-old little girl or little boy out of this. What it is indoctrination.
Yes.
Listen, this school is after the hearts and the minds of 3- and 4-year-olds.
And I'll tell you, I'll back that up for you, because the reason that they are trying to force these kids in without the opt-out is because so many parents didn't want their kids being part of it, that it was destroying the classroom.
Yeah.
So instead of saying, well, okay, here's a curriculum that our parents don't want, maybe let's just ditch it. No, we are going to push it, and we're going to require kids to be there because so many of them don't want to be.
It's hard to indoctrinate kids if the parents won't cooperate.
Right.
Yes.
And that's kind of what's happening. Wesley, what's your take? You're doing the Tim Wildman stretch right now, so I don't want to lose you.
I'm doing my part. I'm playing the role of dad here.
Yeah.
So that means is it this time in the show where I become liberal now? But when I say become liberal, he likes to sometimes play liberal.
Well, he plays devil's advocate.
Yes.
That's what
it's his words. He says I'm playing liberal.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, all right.
Because he used to
call me it now. Don't soften it.
He used to call me the liberal.
That's right.
And then now he's jumped in. He wants to be more liberal than I am.
Yes.
When I play devil's advocate.
No, this is not the Tim Wildman stretch. You're losing me. This is the Tim Wildman stretch where I'm thinking through what I'm about to say next.
Yeah.
Because this stuff gets me worked up.
Yeah.
I get pretty mad about this. These are the issues when you're talking about children, where they can't speak for themselves.
Right.
So the adult has to, and this is where I get pretty upset. Okay, but specifically on this issue, I don't understand. The whole this would be more of a Supreme Court legal issue, I would think, if they're saying yes to the book or no to the book. the fact that this is a matter of an issue where the parents get to decide whether they are participate. This has nothing to do with math.
Right.
This is not Common Core where they're debating over how we should be doing math.
Yes.
Okay. This is not a matter of science or anything like that. This is a book that promotes LGBTQ issues that the parents don't want. In fact, the other way around, if there was a book that promoted another issue that other parents weren't interested in, if it's make it an option. I don't understand why.
How about the book Johnny Comes to Christ?
Yeah, right, exactly. yeah. This is I don't see this. I don't see why this is this big of an issue for the other team on the issue of opting in or opting out. I think that settles it for me.
Well, but here's the thing. As Fred pointed out, this is an issue, or somebody said it, this is an issue of indoctrination.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other side wants to indoctrinate the kids. And so in order to indoctrinate them, they have to start from a very young age. And by the way, I wrote a series of articles back in the late 90s. This is how far this goes back, where I quoted homosexual activists who said, you know what, and this is pretty close to the actual quote, you know what, there are plenty of graves still available for all the old people who won't cooperate. That's why we're looking at teaching children to be more accepting. Because they said we're never going to convince all these old fogies, but when they die off, we'll have a new generation of kids who believe like we do. And that's why these people don't want parents opting out.
Right. And furthermore, this is their only way to indoctrinate children because they don't have children of their own. So
that's good.
They have to use the public schools in order to do it.
Half of them have cats.
Have cats. Yep. And who's a fan of cats?
Yes.
We just lost some people there.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Listen, we love our listeners and supporters who have cats.
Okay.
In fact, I have two. We have two that we're trying to get rid of. They are good buddies. And they go as a pair. So just contact. No.
Hey, in all seriousness, think about that for a second. They have to use entertainment and public schools. Those are their two primary ways, entertainment and public schools, that the LGBTQ agenda has to force their ideology.
Right.
Because they don't. Most of them don't have families of their own or children of their own.
Well, they got a fight on their hands, and now it's reached the Supreme Court. I don't know what happens. It seems as if Fred will give you the last word on this, and then we'll move on. But it seems as if they may lose this in the Supreme Court based on what a majority of the Supreme Court justices have said. But it is also notoriously difficult to read and get the final verdict by what justices say during kind of this cross-examination. So I don't know what happens if SCOTUS rules against these parents. I don't know what people do next.
Yeah,
other than pull their kids out of public school.
The reports coming out of the reporters who actually covered this for the day on Monday, I think it was 2.5 hours of arguments. They were saying it looks like the Supreme Court will rule in favor of the parents.
Yeah.
Especially and we played this Justice Kagan, who is considered on the liberal side of the Supreme Court. We heard her, what she had to say. She said, wait a minute, I read the stuff too.
Yeah.
And this is not appropriate for religious reasons or not.
Right.
She said. And don't forget, this is an affiliation of sort of parents who are Christian, who are Jewish, and who are Muslims.
That's true. In fact, Mahmoud is the plaintiff, was a Muslim guy.
Yes. So I think based on that, these justices, I think, are, wait a minute now, we don't just have a bunch of right-wing Christians coming in here. We've got Muslims, we've got Jewish parents who are all very concerned about this. Now, what your dad did say the other day, what Tim did say the other day, was the answer to this is you got to change that school board.
That's it.
That's the bottom line in this. And the question is, do we have enough parents, enough voters in Montgomery County, Maryland, to say we're not going to put up with this school board supporting this kind of thing? And in the next election, we're going to run a bunch of people who don't agree with the current school board. We're going to get these people out of there.
Yeah.
Yep. Amen.
All right.
Well, that kind of rhymes with the next story I have. Did you guys
good.
talk about David Hogg yet?
Nope. We have not.
The Democrat Party is there's a battle going on for the heart of the Democrat Party. So we know the squad is out there squatting, and they want to pull the Democrats far, far to the left. They're all into the DEI. They're all over the gay books in schools.
They're all defending the gang members who have been deported.
Yeah, they just if there's a left issue, they take it to extremes, and that's what they want the Democrat Party to do. One of the movers and shakers within the Democrat Party is a guy named David Hogg. He first came to national light because he survived a school shooting at Stoneman Douglas High School, and then he went very, very gun control,
right,
and started doing speeches. And then he was just named or elected or chosen to be the co-chair of the DNC, the Democrat National Convention, the Democrat Party.
Yeah.
And he's as deep as he is tall.
Yes.
Short fella, and he's got very shallow in his views.
Yeah.
And so he is saying the Democrat Party is basically that are controlling a bunch of 80 and 90-year-olds, and they got to go. We need young blood. So what he is saying is he has raised tons of money to primary Democrats in safe Democrat seats with younger, more liberal, progressive, whatever.
So
you
this
want to
is
call
like
it,
the
candidates.
possibility of AOC primarying Chuck Schumer. Kind of thing.
And let's listen. Karl Rove was talking about this on Fox, Cut 12.
Well, I think this is Hogg trying to sort of rescue himself because he announced he turned 25 on the 12th of April, and 3 days later he announced as the Democratic National Committee vice chairman that he was going to raise $20 million to defeat older Democratic incumbents in the U.S. House of Representatives. And, it's sort of unusual. James Carville, the raging Cajun, immediately said it was the most insane thing he ever heard. A Democratic Party official who says, my first responsibility is to defeat Democrats. I mean, really, really strange. And the Democrats have really shook up over this. Mr. Hogg's an interesting character. He actually has a super PAC called Leaders We Deserve. Last cycle, he raised $11.9 million for that PAC. He spent $10.7 million of it, but only $266,000 or 2.48% was spent on campaigns or transfers to other federal committees. Wow. So most of that money was spent on, overhead.
So he's hearing from the leadership of the Democrat Party, you got to stop this or we'll kick you out.
Go ahead. Should we support Hogg here
or not? I think we can all agree that there is a hog at the heart of the Democratic Party. Listen, this is interesting. That last part Karl Rove said. So the vast majority of that money he raised was spent on overhead rather than on campaigns. It's interesting because I saw on X over the weekend, or maybe it was last week sometime, David Hogg was saying things that are going to be coming out about me, you don't need to be listening to it because they're coming after me. That may be very well be
attack.
What he was talking about is people asking questions about how the money that he raised was spent. And if it's on overhead, that could be anything from him flying first class cross country to
buying homes,
BLM,
BLM.
So that's very interesting coming from Karl Rove. But I think we can all agree the Democratic Party is in, at least as we have known it. Fred, I'll
shambles.
It's in shambles, but we cannot be sure what it's going to look like in 2026 and certainly not 2028. What's it going to look like, and what is it going to stand for?
Well, the Hogg story is just part of something larger that's going on. You've got AOC out there campaigning. And what the Democratic Party has got to do, and they got to do it very quickly, they've got to put this radical left side to rest.
Right.
Because if that is what is presented to the American people in the midterms next year, they know, the old experts in the party know.
Like Carville.
Yeah, they're going to lose big time.
Yep. And it could kill the Democratic Party brand for a generation. The problem for the Democrats.
Wesley's question: should we put money into the PAC?
Oh, I see
that's
what you're saying.
Yes.
Send money to the
go Hogs. Go Hogs.
Go Hogs. All right. Anyway, folks, we talked about a lot of interesting stuff today. That's what we do. And hope you will join us tomorrow for Trivia Friday. But there is more great programming directly ahead on American Family Radio. Keep listening.
We live in a day when America's families are under attack like never before.
Buddy Smith, Senior Vice President of the American Family Association.
The war against biblical principles rages